Hello, gorgeous listener. Welcome to the show. Today, you are invited to be a fly on the wall while I talk about you with my fellow health and wellness coach, Beth Feraco. Okay, well, maybe we aren't talking about you. We're talking about that woman who is in midlife and she's eating like 1,200 calories a day and she's getting the steps in and she's doing the strength training and she's eating her vegetables and her weight is not budging. And she's so frustrated. So she goes to her doctor and she's like, okay, check my hormones or something because something is not adding up here. And the doctor checks and then comes back and says, no, everything's normal. Well, you know what? Weight gain is just something you're going to have to accept as you get older. Okay, first of all, if that's you or you know someone like that, you are going to get so much out of this conversation that I'm having with Beth. I wanted to bring her on the show because she is really knowledgeable and she pulls no punches. I think you are going to absolutely love her, and I agree with everything that she's about to say. And if this is you, I have a resource that is amazing, and it is going to give you a plan of action to get out of this situation. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Building Muscle and Burning Fat After 40. And you can get it at fitfeelsgood.com/ultimate. And that is totally free. I'm going to leave the link in the notes for you. Okay. But for right now, get ready to meet Beth and fall in love with her no nonsense practical advice.
It's time to get your head out of your ass and start creating a life of no regrets. Whether you want to lose weight, get rich, or manifest a hot threesome on the beach, you're gonna want to turn this up. This is Goals, Grit, and some woo-woo shit with your host, best-selling author and professional butt kicker, Una Duncan.
All right. Beth Feraco, I am so happy that you're here.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for asking me to be on.
Okay, so Beth, I am going to ask you about your background and all that sort of stuff. But right off the bat, I want people to get a taste for your vibe. So here's my first question. Right now, in the fitness and nutrition world online, what is fucking pissing you off?
Oh, Jesus. Where do I even start? Cortisol bullshit.
Oh, my God.
I can't even take it anymore. I can't. Like, people need to stop. Like, it's like cortisol face, cortisol belly. Someone just sent me a video of someone said they lost weight from these cortisol sandals.
Oh,
yeah. I was like, oh, this is new. And so I just literally right before this, I screen recorded it because it was kind of like a commercial on Instagram or something. So I couldn't save the video, but I'm like, this is probably the most insane thing I've seen.
I wanted to ask you about this later. I have this in my list of questions, but since you mentioned it, can we tell them about cortisol face right off the bat? This is Beth pulled on her.
Oh my God. Yes.
It's fucking hilarious. So tell them what you did, Beth.
It's hilarious. So, this cortisol thing, I was kind of making fun of it because this is so fucking crazy. I've got to do something about this. So in my stories, I did cortisol face where I blew out my cheeks like a chipmunk. And in the next story, I sucked my face in like I was sucking through a straw, totally fake, right? And and then the next story, I said, DM me cortisol to get my tips and tricks on how I did this. And I must have had my cortisol face. Yeah. And I must have had 100 DMs that said cortisol. And I said, are you fucking serious to all these? And they're like, yeah, I thought you were serious. I'm like, how could you think that was serious? And then I made a reel about it, because that was that fucking crazy. Like, how can you be that gullible that you are going to actually believe when it's apparent that I'm sucking in my face and I'm blowing out my cheeks? Yeah. It's actually frightening.
It is a little bit frightening. And okay, awesome. I want to touch on all that because I think that is a great question. Why are people so gullible? Why are they so desperate for answers to manufactured problems like cortisol face when you're puffing out your cheeks?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Before we get into all that, let's give people a little bit of context. So can you share a little bit of your personal journey with fitness and nutrition and what inspired you to do what you do, which is basically rip a hole in some BS of the fitness world online?
About almost 9 years ago, I quit drinking. So that's really what got I guess, fitness really started. But when I graduated high school, I actually went to college to become a nutrition major. But I was so distraught with grief because my dad passed away 4 days before I graduated high school that I didn't really ever deal with that. So the college thing didn't last long. I skipped college and I moved to California. And I was like, I'm going to live on the beach in California. So I did that for almost 20 years, right? So was a bartender, fashion designer, became an alcoholic, drug addict, and kind of carried that to lifestyle into my marriage. So after my son was born, I had really bad postpartum. And, throughout my pregnancy, and I wasn't drinking, I kind of quit drinking through that and quit drinking while breastfeeding, but then started to pick it up again when my baby wasn't sleeping. It was super stressful. I felt really isolated because I was a stay-at-home mom, my choice. My husband owns a business. So I was like, I wanted to be the perfect parent. I started drinking wine at night, and then it just kind of escalated where I no longer was someone that was a casual drinker. It became the addiction. I had to have alcohol every single day. I started sneaking alcohol from my husband, and the last straw, which was like, I guess my rock bottom, was on our anniversary. I think it was our 2 or 3 year wedding anniversary. I was pretty early in our marriage that I drove with my stepdaughter and my son at the time home from a family barbecue on like a bottle of wine. I don't remember it. No one got hurt, but my husband was like, what the fuck? I could have killed them. I could have killed me. I could have killed somebody else. So that was really like, okay, I need to do something about it. I am struggling. And before that, it was like on and off of years of like knowing that I kind of had an issue, but I would always almost like my disorder need. Yeah. Like do crazy fad diets so I can quit drinking. Like I would do the whole 30 days, no alcohol, right? Or I would do fasts, anything that I could be like, all right, I'm not going to drink, something that would force me not to drink. But I always went back to drinking and it was 100 times worse. So I was always trying to quit. I was never the person who was like, it's hard to admit that you have a problem. After that night, I decided that was it. I had to stop. And my only option was going to AA because I tried before by myself and I couldn't do it. So there was a place down the street, like a block away from my house, that had AA meetings at 7 a.m. And I walked in August 21st, 2015. And I went every day for a year. And I've been sober ever since. Wow. So that's kind of how my fitness started. I met a girl who was in the program and she was doing these boot camp type things outside. It was, August in Maine. Yeah. So I would meet her. We'd do like playground workouts. We'd run. She got me into running. So I started doing 5Ks, half marathons, 10Ks, you name it. I was doing it. And she got a job somewhere else, personal training. So we couldn't hang out and do early morning workouts anymore. So, I'm like, what am I going to do? The gym opened up near the AA, place I was going, and they had classes at 6 a.m. So I started taking those classes and then would go to my AA meeting after. And then as time went on, my boss at the time was looking for a front desk person. So that became my first job, being sober and also out of becoming a stay-at-home mom since my son was about to go to preschool. And then from there, he was like, I feel like you'd be a really good coach. Do you want to start interning? And that's kind of when it started. Wow. So I started interning and then I got certified nutrition, personal trainer, and all that stuff.
That's amazing. Now, do you think that, they talk about cross addiction a lot. Do you think that the intense focus on fitness replaced the role of alcohol in your life at that time?
Running for me did. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. I was running so much that I got plantar fasciitis, shin splints. It was unhealthy, but the running was keeping me from drinking. So I just kept doing it.
Yeah. It's a continuum, like pick your unhealthy.
Yeah.
With the background of addiction, do you have any thoughts when people use addiction language when it comes to food?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me because I know like food, you can't be physically addicted to food, right? We need it to survive. But with alcohol, it becomes a physical addiction. But also with food, there's a behavioral thing. So I'm kind of torn on the whole addiction to food and alcohol and comparing that. I don't really think there's a comparison, but I also feel that people really do struggle with a behavioral addiction with food, but it's not a physical addiction.
How do you think your sobriety journey helps you coach people? Because there are some similarities.
That I know that if you really focus on becoming better, that you can do it. That it really is a choice. Like I can choose to stay where I'm at, or I can choose to move forward, even though I know it's going to be fucking hard. You have to do that. Like we all have a choice. Either stay where you are and remain the same, or you can change your life.
Well, that's interesting because isn't the first tenet of AA, you obviously know way more about this than I do, but isn't it, we are powerless?
So we're powerless over alcohol.
Isn't that the idea? Am I wrong about that, Beth? You know more about it than I do.
Well, we're powerless. Yeah. And this is one of the reasons why I left AA. So So I went for a year straight, like take what you want and leave the rest is my motto, right? I felt like everyone in there was just repeating things over and over and over again, and they never were moving forward. And I believe we do recover. I didn't like going in there and saying, my name is Beth and I'm an alcoholic. I feel like it's like, my name's Beth and I'm in recovery. I'm recovered, because it's like our thoughts and how we talk about ourselves and label ourselves, they really do matter.
And it doesn't feel genuine for you to talk about yourself as an alcoholic when you haven't had a drink in 9 years. Is that true?
Yeah. I'm someone that struggles with alcohol. I can't ever touch it again. Because I don't want to. I don't want to find out, really, because I know what it's like to be that person that I was drinking. So, I don't know, for really powerless. I don't like that word, powerless. Like, I believe we do have power.
I want you to go on a couple of other rants. So can I trigger you?
That's so funny. Yes. Trigger.
Talk to me about clean eating when people.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. When people come at you saying that you are not eating clean enough or that you should be doing clean eating.
It's like, what does that even mean? I think if you ask 5 different people, they'll have to give you 5 different answers. Like, what is clean eating? They're like, that's what, eating everything in the most natural state, right? Am I going to go pick an apple off the tree or, grow my own vegetables and slay my own cows? I mean, I just think it's shamey, it's like, I'm eating clean. It's like, okay, so what are you saying are you saying that the way I eat is dirty? Like, yeah. It doesn't really make sense. And that's where also our words and the way we say things, they matter. I think it's shameful to other people saying that. And also it's like, it is elitist. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just can't stand that term.
What about, when people are like, okay, yes, you're in a caloric deficit, but if you don't fix your stress is going to make you fat. This podcast is made possible by Fit Feels Good, my online fitness and nutrition company. Here's what we do.
I have so many incredible benefits from the MFA program. It literally changed my life. I have the book, Healthy AF. I'm absolutely in love with my life now. I find that the healthy habits that I built are amazing to go back to. The benefits that you're going to see as a woman in your 40s plus are things you could have never imagined. The key, which I know Una talks about over and over again, is loving your body now, not what you're envisioning it to be.
Yeah. Well, if you're stress eating, I believe stress is the enemy of self-control. Right. So if you got some stress, you're going to use food as a means to cope because, control here. So you need to get a handle on your stress management skills, but stress within itself is not going to cause fat gain. It's just going to be harder to be in a deficit because you're going to be stressed out and you're not really going to care. You're not going to plan. You're just going to,
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny when I think when people picture stress or cortisol, it's almost like little monsters. Like, remember the Munchies monsters from like Hostess and the Munchies? And
yeah.
Monsters, they're like in your body and they're making you eat or whatever. And that's
right.
Quite the case. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
What about you're not losing weight because your body is in starvation mode?
Oh my God. It's okay. I mean, that always drives, that's something I used to believe in, right? It's like, oh my God, I'm not eating enough. That's why, but when you know better, you do better. You can't create energy from nothing. And I don't think people really understand that, you don't gain fat from not eating. Like, that's scientifically impossible. I think what people maybe are thinking is like the metabolic adaptation, when we're looking at bodybuilders, right? That have been in steep caloric deficits for months. They're going to have a very low metabolic rate. And so at that point, they're going to have to keep going lower and lower. And it's just, you just can't do that. So, but starvation mode is a myth. I mean, there's no overweight prisoner of wars. I mean, what about people that are anorexic? They're literally not eating.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. We have lots of proof of people who are actually starving that are not having extra fat. Yeah. Okay. What about, it's the carbs that are making you fat?
Oh gosh, that one. Because people will eat a bowl of pasta and then they'll get on the scale the next day. They're like, oh my God, the scale, it went up. Oh my God, I can't eat pasta. I can't eat bread. It's like, no, that's water. They don't understand how the scale fluctuates. And that's another thing. It's just misinformation and not understanding the science behind certain things and what foods do and how we react to them. And it's not a negative thing, right? Yeah. And thinking that the scale is like the be all end all, like whatever it says, it's like, oh my gosh, I gained 2 pounds. Like, no, you didn't.
It's impossible to gain 2 pounds of fat.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about, and this is kind of back to the clean eating, when people are saying, you shouldn't eat anything out of a package, you shouldn't eat anything with more than 3 ingredients, stuff like that. How does that make you feel when people say that?
It's just impossible. I mean, that's really hard. To me, it's like, how are you living your life with that mindset? You've got to be struggling, because I've been there. I've been that person. Meanwhile, I was drinking 2 bottles of wine a night, and I was giving my husband shit for having ice cream, or, me drinking a bottle of 2 a night and then juicing the next day because I thought it was health. I've had all those disordered orthorexic. I was 100% orthorexic, organic, clean. That was my mindset, even though I was so out of my mind with alcohol. So I think that's why, also another reason why I get very passionate about it, because I was that person. I know what it's like to have like a fucked up, warped mindset around food. I even come across like old Facebook posts when they come up like 13 years ago, when it must have been like 12 or 11 years ago. I recently got one in January, a few. And it's like, I said things like, my son is turning 1. Does anyone have any recipes for gluten-free, sugar-free, dairy-free carrot cake? And I'm like, oh my God, my poor son was turning 1, and I literally made a gluten-free, sugar-free, whatever free carrot cake. And it just reminds me of how my thought process was.
But you got to have so much compassion for you, young mom, trying to do everything right. Like, you're just trying to be perfect and do all the things to do. And oh my gosh, I mean, we think we got a lot coming at us as women, who are in our fucking prime, but moms, oh my gosh, like, it's just brutal.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, all of our beautiful clients are doing the same thing. They're just trying to do everything right. So when they come at us with questions like, is it okay to eat potatoes or whatever, right?
Bananas.
Bananas or something like that. It is heartbreaking and also so understandable, because they have 13 other posts in their feed right now that are saying, bananas are toxic because hormones or whatever. Okay. So, but the biggest thing that I'm sure you get, and I get as well, is a story like this. And I know you get it because you answer this all the time. So it's somebody who says, listen, Beth, I am in a caloric deficit. I strength train 3 times a week. I get 15,000 steps a day. I have 30 pounds to lose, and I only eat organic. And they say, and I just cannot lose an inch. And my doctor says it's just because I'm older now and I have to accept it.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough when you really do feel like you're doing everything, and you probably are, but we're human and we make mistakes. I know for me, it took me a year to figure out that I was not actually in a caloric deficit. I think I was trying to lose fat by running. I was doing all these things. I was eating clean. Right? That's what I, said in the beginning. But it really was my portions. And I didn't understand that until someone was like, how, are you weighing and measuring your food in grams on a food scale? It's like, no, should I be? And then I started doing that, and I'm like, oh my God, it was actually an eye opener. Yeah. I'm like, I'm eating way too much portions. It wasn't the food. It was the fact that I was having like 2 cups of rice, 2 avocados, seconds, but I'm eating really healthy. That's right. I think that's a big one. I'm eating healthy. I've changed my diet. I'm doing all these things, but it really comes down to the portions.
100%
in the end.
Yeah. I totally agree with you on that. And then what will happen is that someone will say something like that. You'll give an amazing answer like you just did. And then there will be a million comments of people saying things like, well, have you tried, it's probably your thyroid, or have you,
oh gosh, yeah.
Or, like, how do you manage the shitstorm of people going outside of this scope of practice?
I've made videos about that too, saying, listen, like, the comments are like out of control. Like, why are you guys diagnosing someone? And my and like that I made a video about that, just, asked a question. Like, you don't even know anything about them. Like, oh, it must be your thyroid. You should get that checked. Why would you say that? Like, why are you giving that kind of an opinion? Because that's what it is. It's just an opinion at that point. It's not fact. But people reach so far out of the box that it's like, it really is not that difficult. And if you did have a thyroid issue, you'd have a lot of other things going on besides lack of fat loss. And I think people tend to forget that there's other symptoms besides lack of fat loss when it comes down to hormonal issues.
Yeah. Because our industry is completely unregulated, it's kind of a free-for-all for who's giving advice. What is your advice for anyone who's swimming in this fucking cesspool?
I think you really need to stop following people that make you feel bad about yourself or make you feel like you're broken or that you need to eliminate everything out of your diet or everything is poison. When you start to follow people that like you and me that actually we talk about the same thing over and over again. We don't instill fear. I think it's the people that instill fear in you that you need to like weed out.
I think that's true. Yeah. Fear, the feeling of being broken. Absolutely. Absolutely. And
fear sells.
Oh,
right. It's like, look at like the Liver King and the Carnivore, MD, like they've got millions of followers all based off fear.
Dude, the carnivore thing, it blows my fucking mind because even the guy who wrote the carnivore book has said like, hey, this is probably not that healthy for most people.
Right.
And it's like a religion for people.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, why are you eating? It's like literally going to church for you.
Yeah.
You're defining your entire existence around your diet.
Yeah, that's right. So let's get back to that comment section because it is so interesting. Not only do people diagnose, but they have really strong opinions on even you and your practices. And you are, a successful health and nutrition coach. And they say things to you like, oh, whoa, you eat all that food? And they'll say, oh, you're in a, caloric deficit. You've only lost 2 pounds this month. Or they'll criticize you're eating packaged foods or whatever. So when I read all those, here's what I was wondering about you, Beth. Do you have a thick enough skin that you just see all of those comments as like, oh, what a great teaching opportunity. I can talk about this. Or do you get
most of the time? Yeah. I usually think of it as a teaching opportunity. That comments are great for content.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think it's just educating people more and more, saying the same thing, repeating myself over and over again, because people need to hear this. If they're anything like me, it took me years to figure out that I didn't know what the fuck I was doing or talking about, until, like I said, when you know better, you do better. And when you're, consistently looking all over the place and getting your information from Paul Saladino and then someone else, you can't make the connection of what is right and what is not.
Yeah.
Where it's like black and white thinking.
I don't know where you are at all on like the woo-woo spectrum, but do you, what about someone who's like, I'm going to shut out all that noise and just listen to what my body's telling me? Do you ever tell people to do that? Like that? Or tell me about your feelings when I say that?
I love woo-woo shit. I do. I think sometimes people don't even really understand what their body is telling them because they don't listen. People are so fast. They're fast paced. They don't sit down long enough to actually notice when they're full. So how could you listen to your body when you don't really even know how to listen to your body? Yeah. I think that's something that takes practice, like mindfulness, like mindful eating. Sitting down, eating slowly, just getting your distractions out of the way, and then really becoming in tune with your body. Yeah. People need to slow down and pause and start to listen to what's going on. People don't. So I think that's what people should start doing is really start to pay attention. Slow down your eating. What are you thinking right now? Do you want this cookie? Have you had a shitty day? Or, why do you want to binge all like on the whole thing of Oreos when you just can have a couple? I just think, becoming more in tune with yourself. Totally. And understanding like where are these emotions, the stress, because that's what it comes down to. Yeah. When you're overeating and over consuming, there's other things going on. So what are those other things?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Right.
Client once, she says, I can't stop snacking. And then when I'm talking to her, it's not even a fucking snacking problem. It's like a problem with her job. Like it, you know what I mean? Like it's a completely different, root source there. Right. It's funny. You were talking about eating slow. I have a confession. So I have, we practice a keystone habit in my community every month. And one month I tried to eat slow, like take 20 minutes for your meal. And I sucked at it so badly. I had to like ditch it because I was like, I can't even model this. It is just so hard. I'd rather do 1,000 burpees than spend 20 minutes making a meal, which is so awful because I found that so challenging.
Wow, that's interesting.
Here's the other thing that I wonder when people say, listen to my body. I also don't think that people have enough wisdom to distinguish between, instinct and intuition. And I'm talking about like just raw animal instinct. Like I just want something sugary, and they'll be like, that's my body telling me something. And I'm like, that's just animal instinct for high calorie food. Like, I don't know if you need to listen to that every time. Because
that's like intuitive eating, you know. I have a mixed, but intuitive eating is not about being in like trying to lose fat. I think people, I just want to listen to my body. Well, how do you know how to listen to your body when you don't know about portions and kind of that? Like you intuitively eat after you understand portions and all that stuff.
So I know that you focus also on mental health in your podcast. Do you ever feel like slaying this dragon of fitness BS online every day is impacting your mental health in a negative way?
Sometimes. Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. It comes in waves for me. I think it depends. I can either, go months without letting any comments get to me in social media, and then it'll hit me. It'll just, I'll see one and I'll be triggered, right? Because it's either like you swear too much, you're too this, you're this, and this, and I'll let it go. And then someone will say something that'll just set me off, and then I'll have to make a video about it. But yeah, it does affect my mental health, but I know that I'm a good person and all I'm doing is trying to help people. And so I think going back to why you're doing this, I'm here to help people, is really what I always go back to. I was going to say, and also you cannot change the world without anyone being not upset with you. Oh. And that's how I go into it too. It's like, I'm here to create change. And not everyone's going to like it. Like people don't like when I talk about alcohol.
No, for sure.
But it needs to be talked about. It's like, I'm a health and wellness coach. I can't be like, yeah, this is great. You should be drinking. When all the studies are showing that, right? So, people might not always like what you have to say, and there'll be some pushback, but you just keep moving forward, knowing you're doing
the best you can. The best you can.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I get, I got an email once that was like, I liked you until I found out you had a nose ring. Like, sometimes you're just like, okay.
Right? I mean, the parasocial thing is interesting. They feel like they know you, right?
It's interesting.
Like, do you think you really should be doing this, Beth? It's like, why wouldn't I? Do you know me?
But they feel like they know you.
Yeah.
Which is lovely, which is a gift, because you are so like, here's what I'm fucking eating. Here's what I'm doing. And you're very grounded about that. Like, I don't think any part of your persona is like, look at me being the perfect fitness professional. Check it out.
Right. No. Oh, no.
Clean enough.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I had a client once who was like, I love that you're so, what did they say? Imperfect. I was like, yeah, that's not a strategy. It's actually me trying my very hardest and still.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect and fucking up all of it.
It's like, people have to understand that we're just like everyone else. I'm human. I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I'm trying to navigate this shit like everyone else is. I'm ahead of the game.
That's right. Yeah. Let's talk about why people are so gullible. So the cortisol face. So just to remind you guys. So Beth did this thing where she puffed out her cheeks and said like, oh no, I had cortisol face, and then sucked in her cheeks and was like, fixed it. Text cortisol to find out what I did. And then over 100 people texted her. And to everyone, she was like, are you fucking kidding me right now? And she did a reel being like, what the fuck, you guys? Yeah. How can you be so gullible? And you really tore a strip off people, which I thought was so funny. But I think it's actually a question to take at face value. Why are people so gullible and so desperate for the answer to be texted them in their DMs?
That's a really good question. Why are people so desperate? Because they keep doing the same fucking thing, hoping shit will change. Always looking for the magic answer. There really isn't one. It really just comes down to boring basic shit. But it's hard. It's hard to do the boring basic shit consistently. It's the mindset. It's behaviors. People always look for things that are outside when they need to look inward. It really comes down to what's your mindset? What's your behaviors? Anyone can count calories and restrict their food, but what is going on up here that is, stopping you from moving forward or doing all these crazy things?
So what do you think is often going on up there? Like in that profile that I described of the person who's like, I'm doing everything and my doctor says I'm just getting older, but I can't eat any less. I'm eating 1,200 calories a day. I'm running 10K a day. I'm doing everything. Please, why doesn't it work? What's wrong with me? What do you think is going on in their mind?
I think a lot of people just don't believe in their ability to succeed long term. Like the self-efficacy. A lot of people that have really bad self-efficacy. And so they do these things, they fail, and they think that they're never, or the self-sabotage. They think they're never going to be successful. So they keep doing these new other things. And then the second they may be close to being successful, they just, it's hard. It's hard, you know? I'm trying to think of, you know, I've been that person. I'm doing everything, but also I didn't think I really wanted to hear or be honest with myself.
Right.
As well. And I think honesty is like huge. It's like, I kind of knew I was like eating out too much, but I just didn't really want to deal with it. So I was the type of person like, it's got to be my hormones. I mean, I went to the doctor, got my hormones checked. Everything is fine. It's like, but yeah, not being honest with yourself is a big one, and not believing in your success.
You just started to weigh your, what clicked that you were like, all right, let's really fucking look at this now.
I was ready. I hired a coach. I actually joined Jordan Syatt's Inner Circle, and I was working with him, and he was the one that was like, yeah, you got to weigh and measure your food. Why aren't you doing that? I'm like, I don't know.
Right. Cause and
it's like, okay. And I think having someone from the outside helping you, holding you accountable and saying, this is what's going on. Someone that can, with outward eyes looking in and can like weed through the things that you can't really see. It really helps to have someone. Yeah.
And the other thing, when someone's constantly going, what's wrong? Why can't I do it? I'm like, you know, the problem is that you keep asking yourself what's wrong, and your brain is going to come up with an answer all the time. And you are just perpetuating this idea of yourself as someone who is defective, who cannot lose weight over and over again. Yeah.
Mindset. You got to have a growth mindset.
That's it. Totally. The other thing that I noticed in looking at a lot of your content, you start a lot of your content by reminding people we are not fucking toddlers. We are adults.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, do you think that there's a general lack of people taking responsibility for their actions and their outcomes of their actions?
I feel like a lot of people act like kids. Yeah. You know, they literally act like children. Like you're a fucking adult. I don't know how you leave the house and go to a job. Like when you're asking me like things that could be Googled, like let's say, you know, I need a list of high fiber foods. Okay. I'll Google it. I'll find a whole infographic and I'll post that for you. Like that stuff that it's the, you know, the times of like instant gratification. Everything is instant. It's like you have to take a moment and think for yourself. And a lot of people don't. Also, they live for other people. They don't live for themselves. They're consistently doing other things for other people, which is a big thing I see all the time.
In what way? Tell me more about that one.
Like, you know, moms that take care of are more worried about like, okay, I got to feed my kid, feed my husband, to get them this, get them that. And then they're left with absolutely nothing. I was that person too. It's like, I wanted to be the stay-at-home mom and do everything. Meanwhile, I was suffering, not asking for help, not setting boundaries, which is really huge. Now that I do take care of myself, I have boundaries. I'm way more happier, way more successful that way. And everyone else around me is too.
Right. That's the thing. It's a favor to other people for you to take care of yourself, because if not, you are at least unconsciously expecting that other people are going to pick up the pieces of you when you fall apart.
It's like, why are we suffering?
Yeah.
And making everyone else happy. It's sad. It's sad to me.
Can you describe a little bit about your current daily practices when it comes to taking care of yourself? I mean, do you still do boot camps in the morning and run a lot? And obviously you're sober. Obviously you eat well, if not clean. Tell us what are some boundaries and kind of rituals that you've set up for yourself that are working now.
I have non-negotiables. So my non-negotiables are that I get my strength training workouts in, which is usually 3 to 4 days a week, and that I get my overall like daily steps. I have, 10 to 12,000 steps, whatever that is. That I make sure that I get out for a walk. If I can't do 10,000 steps, I'm getting out for 30 minutes or whatever I can do to, make sure that I'm getting overall movement in. So that's super important to me. And also, I love getting out in the woods, going hiking. So I'll usually do that like on Sundays. So those are my things, getting outside and getting my workouts in and making sure that, I'm eating for my health, because I am 51. So I had a little issue with like cholesterol. So I've really had to really pay attention because, our diet is health and also mental. So making sure that I'm getting, really focusing on the fiber and nutrient dense foods and also fitting those fun foods in.
And I think another mindset thing that we would want to talk about is the expectation that it's going to happen quickly. Like that's a lot of times when people are like,
Yeah.
I've been doing this for two things. When people are like, I've tried everything. It's usually that they've tried the same keto diet 4 times, but then quit after week 2. So it's not really, they've tried everything. They're trying the same thing over and over again and then not doing it consistently. Secondly, when they're like, nothing's happening. I'm like, you've been doing it for 5 days, dude.
I know, right? What do you want to happen in 5 days? Or if someone says, I've been doing everything, strength training and walking and all the things for 5 months and I don't see any difference. I'm like, how could you not see any difference? And let's get rid of the scale. Okay. But what about, are you getting stronger? Are you sleeping better? Like those are huge things that people just totally like let go of. Right. Yeah.
Although, what's so funny? I remember because I'm not someone who exercised naturally. I came to it late in life, but I remember doing my first my first workout, this is embarrassing, was called like fat blasting yoga. And I remember doing my yoga. And I literally remember standing in the shower being like, okay, with the fat to get blasted, like really thought it was going to be an blasting of my fat.
Right. Like sweat is fat crying. Yeah.
All my fat.
Yeah. And people they forget that like this exercise thing is not just about fat loss. It's about our overall health, and that just because we lose weight, we get to our goal weight doesn't mean we stop exercising. You keep doing that. So you need to find something that you love that you can do forever.
Oh, totally. It's like, my son once was like, I was like, hey, remember to brush your teeth. He was like, again, I just did it yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, again, like every day for the rest of your life, you're going to have to do that. So you better figure out a way to make it feel good. And it's the same thing with exercise.
Yeah.
When people are like, are you serious? I got to do that again? Oh yeah. And again. And again.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've been doing hip thrusts for 5 years now. Okay. I'm done with them, but I keep doing them because I know they make my ass look good. So
that's motivating for sure. Beth, what is one thing you would want to just like scream on a mountain right now to anyone who is on a fitness journey?
Keep it fucking simple. Keep it simple, and stop quitting on yourself when shit gets hard.
Mm-hmm. So I know people, I highly recommend follow Beth on Instagram. If nothing else, she is hilarious. She is so no nonsense and she's fucking smart. So definitely follow her on Instagram. And Beth, tell them where else they can, take advantage of your awesomeness.
You can find me on TikTok at Beth Feraco Fitness. BethFeracoFitness.com is my website. I also have a podcast called Cut the Crap with Beth and Matt, and that is on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, anywhere you can listen to a podcast. That comes out every Friday. The new episode.
Beth, before we shut her down, anything you feel like we didn't cover that you want to make sure people know?
Stop following people that make you fucking fear everything. That's what I really,
100%. I'm so with you on that. If it makes you feel like shit, it's not contributing to your.
It's not good for you
at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Exactly.
Wicked. Well, big high five to you, my friend. You're doing such good work in the world, and it was so great to talk to you today.
You too. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, my friend. I think there were so many gems in there, but I really want to emphasize the last thing that Beth said. Stop listening to people who are using fear-based marketing to make you feel defective, and therefore you have to go buy something to fix yourself. Honestly, dude, it reminds me of this brilliant reel by Cassie Wilson.
All right, people, we need a new insecurity to feed to the young girls of the world. What do you got? Love handles. We did that in the early aughts. What else? The dimples in your back at the bottom of your spine? One Direction did that in 2012. Come on, people, look alive. Facial harmony. What did you just say? Facial harmony? Good, bad, facial harmony? What does it mean? It mean, nose, good, eye, good, nose, eye together, bad. I don't understand. It's perfect. Everyone has a nose. Everyone has an eye. So it's ambiguous enough that it can apply to everyone. And the definition of a good feature will always keep changing. All right, what's the next step? Make the girlies on the apps make videos about good, bad facial harmony. Good. Make people Google facial harmony and find AI-generated article. Come on. Make everyone miserable. Make everyone get injectables. Make everyone get Botox. What's the last step? This is how we make girl miserable forever. Girl face will never be good enough. Girl live in prison forever? We make girl obsess over her face every day until she dies. We've done it again.
Oh my gosh, dude. I wish that was further from the truth, but it's not. And listen, if anything you heard here today tweaked you a little bit and you want to chat about it, feel free to reach out at Una Duncan on Instagram. And if you are a woman over 40 who is working towards a fat loss goal, make sure you grab my resource. Notice it's not called How to Get Rid of Your Disgusting Defective Meno Belly. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Building Muscle and Burning Fat After 40, because that is totally possible for you, you glorious, healthy motherfucker. See you next week. Hey dude, thanks for listening. If you like this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you can get the next one. And by the way, if you rate and review this podcast, it really helps me get found by other people who need some goals, grit, and some woo-woo shit. And be sure to connect and DM me at Una Duncan on Instagram and let me know what you thought of the episode. Chat soon.